Okay, so now I've opened up my PNG reference and I set my image size under image size in Photoshop to be larger than 8 by 10, larger than 300 pixels per inch. So it's 10 by 9 by 350. Now I have to cut this out of vector shapes, or think of it as cutting it out of paper with the vector shapes. So I'm going to start with the biggest shape. Now you can try to first just match what you've done, and I'll do that just to show you. But what you're really trying to do is get an emoji for your theme that you customize. And so I'm going to pull this up. I'm just going to open it, double click it in preview, and keep it open into the corner. It'll kind of remind me of what kind of shapes I want and what colors by the end of the day. But let me just show you how it would match first. And as long as you're using vector shapes to make an emoji, you're meeting the requirements. So the biggest shape I have here is a circle. So that's what's called the ellipse tool. I click and drag, and it will give me all kinds of ovals, right? If I want it to be a perfect circle, I have to hold down Shift while I click and drag. And that will lock its proportions. Then I need to use the Move tool here to move it. And if I don't get it quite right, first of all, that's fine, because I got it pretty darn close. But if I wanted to modify it, we do what we did for our compositing. We go up to Edit and Free Transform. Command T is the shortcut for that. And it will give me a transform box. And that allows me to scale it. If I don't want it to warp, I just pull it from a corner and I get the exact circle. But if I wanted to hold down Shift, I could warp it, right? I can Command Z to undo that. And if I wanted to turn this into his robe, like his hood, I would use Warp and kind of tug down on these corners, right, to make this more like a cloak. So we get to customize these shapes as an example. But if I'm just trying to match it, I'm just going to go with this, then do Command T and make it fit that shape behind it exactly. Now, there's one big way in which it doesn't match. The shape is a perfect circle, but what's not matching? The color. Color attributes, they're new because we've only done black line art so far. For vector shapes, how do we know it's a vector shape? You see that little square that's in the corner of the layer window? It's different than the smart object square that we had before. This is what's called a vector shape layer. So it's limited, just like smart objects are, but it has some advantages. If we double click on that layer window, it will open up the vector properties. And the one we're most worried about is the color. So I can pick the color from here, but whenever you have a color picker, and this is really good to know, that means you can also click anywhere on the file in Photoshop and it will match that color. So I can make it any color I want, but I can also just match it. And if I'm going for a perfect match, that's a good way to go. Then I say OK. And now I have that purple vector circle. But it covers everything else. So the next step is this. And this is something we're going to learn a lot in the coming compositing projects. We need to onion skin our design. Onion skin means to have a piece of tracing paper on top, right? That kind of shows us what we're trying to do underneath. It comes from animation, it comes from drafting. So, because onion skin is a type of thin tracing vellum. So, I am going to go to my base layer, and I'm going to hit Command J. Who remembers what Command J does? Yeah, it makes a duplicate. Perfect copy right on the layer on top. Command J. Now I'm going to move that layer up above. And now how do I onion skin it? I have to make it transparent. I'm going to take its opacity down to about 30%. Actually, for this one, yeah, I'll do 30. That's fine. I could even go lower. Okay, now I'm going to lock this layer. because this is just showing me kind of the template of what I want. So to lock it, I have the layer selected and I click on the padlock. That way I can't accidentally change that layer as I'm building behind it. And now to see what I've done so far, I turn off the base layer. So far for my template, I've done the circle. What's the next biggest shape? Well, it's probably these eyes, right? For mine. So I'm going to start on the vector shape I've done. And I'm going to go to the ellipse tool again. And I'm going to drag and drop, holding down Shift, another circle. Okay? I'm going to double click it and change it to black. And then I'm going to use the Move tool to place it. And I can see those edges, right? It's not quite right exactly, so how can I shape it and make it match exactly? Command T. Tuck it in, and if I need to warp it a little bit or change it a little bit, I can use Shift. Now, this was something new. Because I used the Shape tool a second time, it gave me a second shape layer. And that can have different properties. Instead of doing that whole thing again to get this eye, in vector design there's a lot of duplication, right? So I'm just going to hit Command J, and then the Move tool, it makes a duplicate of that eye, and I move it over here. And when you move it, notice how I get that little kind of contained magenta lines that tell me how to keep it in line. Because it kind of knows that I want it to match. Okay, now what about the white shapes behind the eyes? Same thing. I got lots of ovals. Now I'm going to make a longer oval like this. And I'm going to double click and I'm going to change it to white. Now the reason I see all those different tones inside is because I have this onion skin layer on top. But if I ever want to see what my vector shapes are doing, I just turn the eyeball off on the onion skin layer. Now I'm going to use the Move tool to place that. And what's different about the whites here is that they are tilted. So I do Command T, not only to size it, but to also rotate it and to shrink it a little bit. And hold down Shift and maybe make it a little bit more squat. And then tuck it in. And there that matches very close. So then, this is what I have. That doesn't look right because this layer needs to go behind the black layer. And so all I need to do that is grab it and pull it under. Now, we're going to start making a lot of shape layers here, right? So another way that you can move a shape layer up or down through the other layers, instead of just grabbing it and pulling it, is using Command left bracket to move down. So Command left bracket, which is next to your P key, that moves your shape down. Command right bracket moves it up. So you can see how that white oval is now kind of sinking down underneath the other cutouts. Then I can duplicate it, Command J. I can hit Command T. And this time I'm going to move it over, but first I'm going to right click and I'm going to say flip it horizontally. So I get the tilt right. Then I use the Move tool. And I move it over and you see it will keep it contained. And it would be nice if I had my onion skin on because I moved it a little too far, right? There we go. And then I need to move it under. So how can I do that? Command left bracket. So what do I have so far? These are my vector shapes. What's remaining? I'm going to do the easy things first. The nose. The nose is just 3 ovals, right? It's what's called a compound shape, but I could make it with just 3 separate ovals. So I just go to the ellipse tool and I just make a little oval. It's already filled in with black, that's fine. I'm going to use the Move tool. I can zoom in with Command plus and I put it in place, right? Then I'm just going to duplicate that, Command J. Up, but that shape isn't right. So I'm not going to duplicate it because I want a perfect circle. So instead, I'm going to make a new one while I hold down Shift. Now, if you make a new layer, a new shape layer, well, you're inside an already selected shape layer, it will make it a combined vector shape. And I would recommend against that at this point. So you want them all to be individual, just so you can really control them. And with the move key, you can drag and drop, but you can also use your arrow keys if you need to just nudge it in really exact ways. Then I'm going to duplicate that, and then I'm going to move it over. Okay, so what do I have for vector shapes? I have this. And that's exactly how they made it in the emoji program. Okay, now this is a little bit harder. The horns and the mustache shape, those are harder to match. So how do I get that started? Well, the first thing I do is I'm going to make an ellipse. So I'll do the horns first because they're rounded, right? So it's easier to start with an oval than it is to start with a triangle. And then I'm going to use the move tool, kind of move it in place, and Command T, free transform, to rotate it. And that kind of works, right? But it's a different kind of shape. I'm going to turn on my background layer. So I'll hit return. Turn on my background layer so I can see it more clearly. Here my screen got a little stretched. Let me bring it all up so I can see the bottom. There we go. So go down to the bottom, turn it on. And now I can see the shape I'm trying to make. Go up to this, and I'm going to hit Command T. And Command T lets me move it as well. And I'm going to right click, and I'm going to use warp, right? And with warp, what I need to do to modify this is I need to pull it from this quadrant. Or there's actually 9 squares, so I'm not sure what that's called. It's not a quadrant, but from that section, I kind of pull it until that shape lines up on that side, and then I pull it in on this side until that curve kind of matches, and then pull it out on the bottom. Do you see what I'm doing? And then I hit return, and then I hit Command T again, and I'm going to scale it while holding down Shift to widen it out, right, and rotate it. This is why this is trickier. And that's a lot closer. And now I'm going to do right click and warp and see if I can get it right on. Now the beauty of this is I don't need to worry about what this shape is doing because it overlaps with the circle, right? And I'm just going to make it the color of the circle, and then I'm going to move it behind the circle. So again, you change the color by double clicking within the layer window, and then Command left bracket to move it behind. There we go. And now this is what I have. And is it exact? No, it's not, because this is more of a customized shape. So it's just slightly off. I can work to make it even more exact. Is that worth my time? Not really, as long as it works as what I'm trying to represent, right? Good, but this will all teach you. So now, how do I get the horn to match on the other side? Right? I duplicate it, Command J, Command T to free transform it, right click, flip it horizontally, like a reflection, and then move it over until it matches. So that's probably the trickiest shape in this emoji, just matching